This was what it was like earlier today. There were probably about 600 people in the park. They were sitting in the grass. They were listening to the mayor and to other clergy, including a Catholic priest and a rabbi. And it was a really wonderful feeling inside of that park. And a lot of people said that they felt compelled to show up there because of what they were seeing on television, all the images of the violence and some of the reckless things that were happening. They wanted to be the antidote to that. So I think that people who were at the park felt really held together and part of something bigger than themselves. And I had the opportunity to speak to one woman about why she was there. Let's listen.
So I feel that right now is the most important time to have unity and to have love. I feel like there's so much hatred right now in the world, and it is important to represent the people that are coming here, uniting together, and there's one common goal. It's just love.
So coming back here live, most of the crowd is leaving the area. So they clearly know about the 8 o'clock curfew. They're making an attempt to get back to their cars or public transit, whatever they use to get here. I was a little concerned when I looked around and saw some people that I recognized from last night who were not obeying the law. We certainly don't want to have a repeat of last night. Certain areas of downtown where you saw businesses really had horrible graffiti and windows broken and just all kinds of lawlessness, hoping not to have a repeat of that tonight. And I'm sorry I stopped at the beginning of the live shot, but that's because my emergency alert on the phone was telling me that the curfew was in place and I couldn't hear a thing, so that's what happened. But right now, most people are making an attempt to get out. Can we swing around? We can see that the equestrian group of the LAPD is arriving, which says they're going to be moving people along. They're going to maintain that curfew, and this is how they do it. We're seeing this first night of the curfew starting right here in downtown. I'm sure that most of the families that I saw earlier are pretty close to being back to their cars. But these are other people who've been staying in downtown later in the night, and that's when we've had some of the problems that we've been recording for you here on Fox 11. But right now, you can see a concerted effort by the LAPD to get people out of the area and to get them to safety and to impose that curfew until things settle down in the city of LA. Laura Diaz reporting live from downtown, sending it back to the studio.
Laura, you can see with all this movement that LAPD is taking this very seriously. Of course they are. And moving into place to make sure that the protesters and all the people downtown that don't belong there need to move along. Now, the mayor also made a point, I think it was actually Chief McDonald who made the point, that if you are experiencing homelessness, that you are allowed to stay in the curfew zone, and if you are a member of the news media. Now, I'm wondering, because I saw a couple of times on other news channels where the reporter had to keep explaining, no, we're press, we're press. Have you had any kind of interaction like that? Was there any time, a point where they weren't quite hearing you when you said, I work for Fox 11 News?
No, I've had no problems. They've been very even-handed with us. We've been allowed to record the news as we always do. I mean, last night when things got really hairy, they were moving us out for our own safety. But other than that, people have been respectful. They honor the profession and they allow us to do our work. But right now, as you can see right at this corner of Temple and Los Angeles Street, we have some people who are slow to leave, and others, I'm going to presume they were the ones who were at that prayer vigil earlier, and you know, they're law-abiding, they wanted to do the right thing, so they've left the area. So I think the people who are still here had nothing to do with that event that we were covering at the park. I think this is a different group.
Yeah. Laura,
and they showed up here because they saw activity.
Yeah, we should note the picture on the left box is that overpass of the 101 that we saw that was taken over by the crowd. They were throwing the rocks onto the CHP vehicles below. Law enforcement well in control of that overpass, well in control of that access to the 101 freeway or not.
That is the 101 freeway. I don't think that is near the 101 freeway. I think that's closer to the federal building. You're talking about the larger screen?
No, the smaller box.
The smaller box.
Not that shot there, not that one, the one we had before.
Okay. Well, they were blocking an entryway to the 101 freeway, so I beg your pardon.
No worries, no worries.
But on the other side is the LA Mall. So anyone who's been downtown and you know the LA Mall, that is subterranean, and it is near City Hall East and near the court system, et cetera. That's where sometimes people go to have lunch if you're on jury duty or what have you. But I find it really remarkable that we're seeing the policemen, the police officers there, and they already have their less than lethal rifles drawn. And so they mean business. They're going to make...
Well, think about it. Anybody here who's not moving is not wanting to be part of the acknowledgement of that curfew. Anybody else who is well aware of it and doesn't want to be caught up in it is probably, like Laura said, in their car making their way out, and LAPD will accommodate that. But quite a show there where you have those equestrian units, quite a show of police vehicles. But it sounded like the mayor was very serious at her news conference today. The police chief, very serious. They were not going to take another night of lawlessness in this downtown area.
It was one thing when there was the graffiti. That was very sad for the mayor because, of course, she wants the city to shine when we are hosting these big events upcoming, the Olympics, the World Cup. But after 23 businesses were damaged and looted, that was just the line in the sand. We cannot have this happen again. We cannot have another night of that. And when you have so many people converge on a small area, there's only so much police can do. Okay, police on the move now, pushing along a few people. There aren't that many people. And by the way, we love the mounted units only because we love horses, but the horses are very persuasive. You might be able to go toe-to-toe with an officer with a riot stick, but it's a lot harder when you've got a 2,000-pound beast, or however. Yeah. Christina Gonzalez would know better than I how much a horse weighs.
Let's go back to Laura Diaz, if we can, there on the ground. Laura, you are outside the federal building where it seems to me that police are tightening up that area right now, really trying to take control of that area with a clear sign to those people that we see backing up right now.
Yeah, you can see that there's a scrimmage line that's been formed on the other side. When we had the camera whipped around before and we were showing you the mounted unit, that's the other side. So they're now walking toward us, and I presume they're trying to get the last. Okay, they want us to move. We got to move.
All right, we'll take it back here. Obviously, Laura, a member of the media as well, but when the police come in like this and they are clearing the area, that means us as well.
Yeah.
It is.
They'll start directing you to an area that you need to go. If they don't want you there, we have a right to be there as members of the media, but they can tell you, instead of here, please go over there.
And again, that is the area where we saw the National Guard there and Homeland Security there. Obviously, the LAPD wanting to make a statement about that specific area to start, for sure. That's where our camera is, and we are seeing overhead. But they're really wanting to make a statement, Susan, about that area with the federal building, and perhaps that is a sign that they want no damage in that area, nobody being unruly in that area, and making a stand right there.
Well, particularly because a lot of what we see, a lot of the optics, especially around the federal building, that informs what kinds of sentiment we're getting out of the president or Speaker Johnson or, you know, anyone that is justifying the orders that ICE and Border Patrol, whatever, have issued, or specifically the Trump administration, in terms of like fortifying law enforcement around federal buildings.
So it happened around 6 o'clock, give or take, right before 6 o'clock, that the mayor's news conference happened. LA Mayor Karen Bass declaring a local emergency with that curfew for tonight. And a reminder to anybody who's watching from other parts of the country, who is watching from other parts of the world, other cities. If you do know LA or you don't know LA, it's a pretty small area that they have this curfew. Everybody else can go about their business. If you're in Santa Monica, you're in Whittier, you're in Anaheim, you're in Burbank, Newport, you're living your life necessarily.
Right.
This right here, it borders this downtown pocket of the 5 freeway, the 110, the 10, and where the 110 and 5 merge. So it is just a pocket of downtown LA in which they're saying, not tonight, people.
And really, when you think about it, what areas were affected by the protest is even much smaller than that. It's much smaller than when we see the map of the curfew zone, which extends all the way north past Chinatown. We didn't really see very much in the way of Chinatown. The closest we came was that reckless driver that drove. That guy got out of there as well. So you see the borders, you see how it's all bordered by freeways, and that was on purpose. The mayor said that's the way Los Angeles sees the areas around Southern California, bordered by freeways. And so, you know, the 110 slot between the 101 and the 5. So you know that's closed. You know that the Interstate 5 down to the 10, that is the border. That's the eastern border that is closing off that zone. But it's a huge, she says it's a 1 square mile. But it looks really big, and if you then consider if we were able to zoom into exactly where the protests have been, it's a smaller portion still of this where the curfew zone is.
Well, bottom line, we saw some lawlessness last night, destruction of businesses. You've seen all of the graffiti that's been left behind. If I'm in business in that area, I may be welcoming the curfew just to bring some calm, but also that means a loss of business. And for people who don't know downtown LA, it's really been built up over the years.
Absolutely.
With wonderful restaurants and hotels and crypto.com.
It's an entertainment zone now, whereas 10 years ago or so, it wasn't so big as it is now.
Right.
You got crypto.com, LA Live, not LA Live Now. That's this.
Anyway, it's one of those locations that, you know, you go on a Friday night to go out to dinner or to an event downtown. There's the garment
BET Awards were downtown yesterday.
City Hall, your LAPD headquarters, your heart of government is right there. But for the most part, if you're living in anywhere else, any other spots of Los Angeles, you're not directly affected by this. You're not under a curfew if you're in Woodland Hills or Calabasas or Irvine or Marina del Rey.
And I guarantee you, everyone that lives in the city of Los Angeles or even nearby the city of Los Angeles, they've gotten text messages from people from across the country going, "Are you okay?"
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And when in fact it's like, I mean, just today I got a text message from somebody in Hawaii who says, "How's your neighborhood?" And I go, very far away from this area that's impacted by the protests. Don't worry. It's just not, I mean, the world sees it as a whole area, this whole city of LA, when it's not.
But that's true with any breaking news, and you see something happening in Dallas. Do you reach out to your friends in Dallas? I often do. How are you doing? Checking on you, because not only does it maybe not affect you physically, it might affect you emotionally, and people know that we work in the business, so they probably assume you and I are coming to work, you and I are in the midst of this, you and I are dealing with this, and you and I can provide information. But I'm wondering, to our viewers, if you also have gotten a message from family or friends who they live away from LA, they live in another location, and they want to check on you, because emotionally, this affects all of us, because we're all watching. We know the ICE operations are not over. And for families that are being directly affected by the ICE operations, it's a very painful time. But on a greater issue, we're looking at this politically. We're looking at this with our local government and our national government. And it affects us in LA, but it also affects the nation.
Absolutely. In fact, the mayor called it an experiment, that she said that she believes that this is the Trump administration's experiment. If we can take the second largest city and take control of it, the second largest city in the nation, then we can do it elsewhere. So that was her assertion. We don't know if there is any credibility to that opinion, but she believes that it is some kind of experiment. Of course, we know that there's no love lost between the governor and the president, so perhaps that's why There's such an aggressive, or seemingly an aggressive, actions by ICE. We do know that there have been raids today in various locations around Southern California. So despite the protestations, despite the demonstrations and the protests, it's not stopping ICE. Excuse me. It's not stopping ICE from doing what they came here to do, which is to round up undocumented. Now, you can take issue with the way they're doing it, because apparently what's getting caught up are not just people that are violent criminals with police records, but also people that are just trying to work and feed their family.
Well, as we are watching this here, obviously the LAPD there is very prepared to deal with this crowd here. And some are going to say they're press, and in this day and age where there's so much social media press, I'm wondering who gets to stay, who doesn't get to stay. It seems everybody with a cell phone seems to be a commentator, seems to be press. I'm sure that you have to have some kind of credential to consider yourself press and to stay.